Hello, everyone. This is Magdalena Grace. Happy New Year. It's actually my first microdosing class in months. I can't even remember. I think the last one I had was on my birthday in September because we moved and we've had so many exciting shifts. We're in our new sanctuary here in Northern County, San Diego. And I have new content also. Been working with clients now, serving both deep dive plant medicine, sacred plant ceremonies, as well as microdosing. The microdosing I've been doing the longest, 18 months now. It's hard to believe. Time flies. And I'm going to go ahead and just dive right into the contents because it's really important that I honor your time and your schedule. My goal is to go for an hour at most. So here we go. Make sure you have something to write with and write on as well. You're going to want to take notes. I do have Q&A at the end if there are any questions on the live. So if you're not tuning in live, you're probably seeing this in my YouTube channel. Please definitely like, comment, subscribe. Would love to hear what you liked best about this presentation, and feel free to share it with a friend whom you know could benefit from this. Especially today's focus is going to be the mental, the physical, the emotional, and the spiritual. I'm going to highlight all the main things that I've seen in myself, microdosing, and then also having seen helped many people through their microdosing journeys. So my intention today is to cover the science and spirituality of sacred plants and microdosing. How does this all work exactly? And then the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual connection with microdosing with ayahuasca or psilocybin. I do want to put that out there. I have trusted sources for those. I don't use any other or recommend any other plants or synthetic medicines. So if you have questions about LSD or MDMA or any of that, or even San Pedro, I'm not your gal. So I thought I'd just clear that up right away at the beginning. And then I'm going to talk about my microdosing 30-day jumpstart. And I have an upcoming program in March for women who want to microdose. So hold your questions again. We'll have them at the end if you do have any questions. So really quickly about me, I am the founder of the Healthy and Wealthy and Wise movement. I actually do have a nonprofit also that I'm starting up this year. I'm so excited about it, helping heal the minds, the bodies, the spirits of suicide survivors, as well as family survivors who've lost people to addiction. Those are near and dear to my heart. You'll hear a little bit more later why. And this is also the name of my podcast, Healthy and Wealthy and Wise. My passion is to help people find their best health, their best wealth, by trusting and going within to find their best wisdom for all that. Because a lot of times society, religion, schools, systems, just our general upbringing, right? We're brought into this world looking outside ourselves for comfort, solace, answers to our questions, and oftentimes, that's where we get focused, is finding answers outside ourselves. But that wisdom, it's all inside. And oftentimes, yes, finding a guide, a mentor, a teacher to help you with that, as well as these sacred plant teachers, is a great way to do that. I launched a microdosing community in September of last year. And just mention to this, applying only to those of you who are on the live. If you stay till the end, you'll receive a gift. So stay till the end and you'll get to find out what that is. I love this quote by Mark Twain. I use it all the time in my presentations, reminding you that an open mind leaves a chance for someone to drop a worthwhile thought in it. So some of the things that I say today may be weird, confronting, triggering. I definitely is not my goal to offend or trigger anyone. It's just I have found in this space of trauma, healing, mental health, physical health, spiritual awakening, that we all have different thoughts and beliefs and opinions, and I respect all of them. I am also here not to say that I'm right and I have the answers. I'm not your guru. You are. I'm just asking you to have an open mind today, because I may share something that will change your life. So really quickly, if you haven't been following me for a very long time, I had a massive amount of grief and death, unprocessed grief. I had 8 friends commit suicide. Now it's a total of 12. But that was a very short period of time, 2006 to 2019. So not quite one a year. I lost both my parents and my brother between 2018 and 2020. Even though my parents were older, they were very sudden. My brother was an alcoholic. That was very sudden. So again, constant amounts of grief. And so I looked outside myself for answers and for solace. I worked and was a binge drinker, and completely felt uncertain in my marriage as well. My husband and I had been married at that time for roughly 11 years, 11 to 12 years, and I thought we were headed for divorce. I felt like a worthless mom. I was completely shut down in my spirituality. Uh, did not feel fulfilled in my career either. I was a sales coach and coming from a very masculine, dominant, go, 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 sell, sell, sell space. Then, of course, came the pandemic, and we were forced to homeschool our then 7 and 11-year-old, never having done that before, while my husband and I both worked from home. And I just was totally numb to life and on the hamster wheel. So at 2020, I pretty much hit rock bottom. I had a mentor say, hey, go and play with microdosing or psilocybin and ayahuasca. And I said, you know what, at this point, even though I've never smoked a cigarette in my life, I think this sounds like a good idea. I did a little research first. I read the book, How to Change Your Mind, What the New Science of Psychedelics Teaches Us About Consciousness, Dying, Addiction, Depression, and Transcendence by Michael Pollan, and recognized that I was really stuck. And my mentor said this too. I was really stuck in the masculine side of my brain, in that left side, that analytical mind. I also call that the monkey mind. At times, it can also be known as the ego. Barking orders, nonstop talk, 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 right? And while psychedelic itself, this may be one of the last times I use that word, means mind manifesting, and scientists definitely studied it for the brain, right? However, there is so much more, which is why today I'm going over the mental, the emotional, the physical, and the spiritual, because there's so much more to these sacred plants than just focusing on the head, the brain, and the ego. We have two hemispheres in our brain, first of all, the left and the right. The left is the doing, the right is the being. The left being the masculine, the right being the feminine. And as a society, and no matter if you were raised by a father or mother, or you didn't even know your parents, this is constantly being thrown at us to be more into our left brain logic, numbers. You go to school, how many certifications do you have, how many degrees do you have, how much money are you making, are you paying your bills? Numbers, numbers, numbers. You get a house, you have a mortgage, numbers, 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 right? And so, depending on the person, you may have 2 or 3 degrees, 2 to 5 certifications, right? Where's the beingness in all of that? We've lost sight of that. And I definitely totally bought the t-shirt, fell hook, line, and sinker for that. And I'll talk later about the feminine rising right now that's happening on the planet. But I had lost my creativity. I had shut that down. I shut down my intuition. I shut my love down for music and the arts. I shut down my creativity from a creation from within standpoint. I was still in kind of the creative doing standpoint. I had launched my podcast. I did all the right things, checked off all the boxes. It wasn't really coming from a place of passion and beingness and creation. At least not from my most authentic self. It's also the feeling side, the imagination side. And I would say most people, man and female, are more in the doing, because that's the way our society has brought us up to be up until this point, especially in the last 4,000 years. Much more patriarchal, much more doing. It's all about who you are and what you're doing. Like you have that question, what do you do for a living? People aren't necessarily asking, how are you being and what is your beingness? I love Carl Jung also. I reconnected with him during all of this learning and experience. He did say, and I love his shadow work concepts. I now specialize in shadow work with my clients. He did say, no tree, it is said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Now, whether you believe in a heaven or a hell is not the point. The point here is, reaching up to heaven. It helps you allow kind of like be a lighthouse to shine your light, to be seen, to be heard, to be felt in this, collective consciousness. Going down into hell is rooting and grounding you into your shadows, into embracing all parts of you. There's something called parts work, and it's really important to embrace all parts of you. And that is what Carl Jung is really good at talking about, and what plant medicine and microdosing is really also very, very good at, because I never had that. idea or concept before. It was always positive personal development, always doing, always, reading books and all of that, and staying positive and affirmations and Think and Grow Rich, right? But I totally missed the shadow work. The other side of this that I like to mention, and I'm going to bring it up again later when we get to the emotional health, is we have these wounds that Carl Jung talks about. We have these shadows. We have two parents, right? We have a mom and we have a dad. And the mom, resembles that feminine energy for that right side of our brain, and the dad represents the masculine side of the brain. Hey, Anne, good to see you. And so through all of that part and pieces and parts, oftentimes we run from the wounded side of ourselves because we don't want to be wounded, right? We don't want to be seen as less than or not enough. And truly, we're here, I believe, right now during this awakening process on the planet to embrace these wounds, to see them, feel them, name them. I actually have a phrase now. We want to name the wounds. We want to feel them in our bodies. We want to then ultimately, right, heal them so that we can be at the highest and best, ascended version of ourselves. And some of these words, again, like I said before, may not make a whole lot of sense to you, but I know I'm reaching my audience if they do. And just knowing that if you really want to live your best life, you've got to go through the shadow work, and the medicine can help you with that. You just got to have a guide. You got to have support for it. If you notice on this side, the feminine wound is too attached, low self-worth, drowning in emotions, like a trauma loop, or I call it a shame or shadow cycle or loop, manipulation, victimhood. I did that. By the way, I've done all of these. Needing to be saved. Oh my gosh, that was part of the issue in my marriage with my husband. I thought because of my upbringing and religion wound, there was all about, I had to be saved, right? And my husband was the man. So therefore, he was saving me. Compromises values and safety. I did that so many times when drinking, so many times with being surrounded by people in business that weren't in aligned with my values. And again, that was part of the feminine wound. A healthy feminine energy is speaking your truth. I have an autoimmune disease. Part of what the sacred plants has helped me do is to reduce my medication. I'm planning on going in remission. But part of that, since that disease was based in my throat chakra, all of the things that I've learned were being shut down because I wasn't authentically speaking my truth. Connecting to your intuition, again, very much a feminine thing. Embracing vulnerability, creativity, being grounded, compassionate, self-compassion and self-love, and of course, being empathic. I think everyone's empathic, but I think especially that feminine energy is where that comes from. Now, the masculine wound, I've shared, some of you have heard my story. I was raised by a single father, had an older brother who was an alcoholic. I've seen a lot of this with clients where the mom was really, really quiet. And the dad was like really dominant, or there was like an older brother figure. Sometimes it's swapped. So think about this for your own family dynamics. But the masculine energy of wounding is controlling, emotionally shut down or unavailable, aggressive, putting others down, too competitive, abusive, insecure, believe it or not. Healthy is having confidence, humility, accountability, being accountable. Oh my gosh, honest, being decisive, taking action when you really mean it and you actually do it, you follow through, right? Setting boundaries, a huge one for me. Because I was so codependent and trying to be all things for all people, that was a trauma response. I didn't have any boundaries. So I was available 7 days a week and, sometimes 24/7. And of course, being able to set those boundaries gives you better health, better mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, and you also feel more secure in yourself as a result. So being able to work through that was a huge one. And we definitely work with this with our clients, especially couples, because a lot of times you marry those opposing wounds, right? and the shadow work and the light work and the sacred plants have been probably the biggest by far to help me heal a lot of these things that you see on this slide. And of course, I already started talking about this, but we become who we are at a very young age. And then there's a whole nother conversation. We may not get to it today about at what age are your chakras developed. But between the 0 to 7 years of age, we were considered emotional beings. You were crying for your bottle, you were crying for your diaper to be changed. And oh, by the way, if it didn't happen right away, that's a wound, right? That's a trauma. Um, 7 to 14, we're becoming mental beings. We're going to school, developing our brain faster, learning, retaining. Between 14 and 21, we're going into puberty, and now we're developing still rapidly our mind, but also our physical body, growing, hair, pubic hair, starting to discover, oh my gosh, we need to use deodorant, and oh my gosh, my period started, and all of these things fastly becoming men and women. No matter if you're, non-binary, this is for all of us. And of course, much of our full development of our brain isn't complete until the ages of 25 to 30. And then I'll just plant the seed so you know it, our chakras are actually, they come all in when we're born, but then they're still developing until we're 50. Why do you think most people have a midlife crisis? That's actually roughly around the ages in their early 40s to mid 40s when your third eye is opening. And then by the time you're 50, depending on, who you are, everyone's different. This is not a textbook example or blanket statement, but by 50 is when your crown chakra is opening. Like my husband had a major awakening as he was turning 50. Most of, my awakening stuff has happened now between 42 and 45, again, because those upper chakras are opening and developing. And ultimately, if the lower chakras, where the fear, the guilt, the shame, are housed in those lower vibrational lower 3 chakras, if you have trauma from these younger ages, which everybody does, guess what? They're blocked. And if you don't know how to work with that, which again, the sacred plants can help with, having a guide and all of that is a huge part of it, then, oh my gosh, the sky is the limit. But if you don't know this, then you can be in a trauma loop. You can have the definition of insanity, the same stuff repeating, attracting the same clients that maybe you don't like, or attracting the same partner that you don't like. That all goes back to how we developed in those, pivotal first 20 to 30 years. And like I talked about earlier, reading that book by Michael Pollan, I was stuck in my left analytical mind. My ego was also barking orders at me. You got to be successful, fake it till you make it, never give up, go until you bleed. You can sleep when you're dead. All of these silly things that we hear, that we adopt, that really aren't our truth, by the way. The ego is trying to protect us to not feel the unconscious stuff, the shadow. I prefer to call it the shadow now, but unconscious mind. Some people call it subconscious mind. If you're a Joe Dispenza follower, great stuff. But I prefer Carl Jung, and understanding that a lot of times I was working and drinking and people pleasing and all of the things, running from my feelings because I didn't want to feel. It was bad. It was scary. So I would just drink or work over it. A lot of my clients, same exact thing, especially if they came from families with alcoholism or maybe a single parent, or a lot of grief, a lot of trauma. They didn't want to feel, so they numb and placate. And guess what? If 95% of our results comes from the unconscious mind, you're basically, as within, so without. So if you don't do the shadow work, if you don't do the work, and embrace and feel and heal and name and all of that, ultimately you're just going to keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again. There's a saying that's really sad, but it embodies this really well, literally embodies it. Most people die at age 25, but are buried at age 75, right? There's a lot of people on their deathbed that says they wish they woulda, coulda, shoulda, right? And I know I witnessed that with my own father, and how, sad that can really, really be, because most people aren't fully feeling. They're not fully healing. They're in the rat race of life, being successful, making money, getting the house payment, the car payment, trying to be good at, parenting and partnering and all of the things, right? We spend a lot of our time outside of our body and outside of our feelings and emotions, when I'm telling you that that's where you've got to be, and you've got to be willing to be that with microdosing and or deep dive plant medicine. And underneath that, that earlier quote by Carl Jung, you go deep into the roots of the hell, as he called it. I call it the roots of your ancestors, the roots of the shadow, and you get into your heart. You get into your superconscious. Again, some people call it higher self, divine within, psychic abilities, connection to source. I don't care what you call it. It's all beautiful to me. It's really getting to your light. So to get to your light, you got to go through the shadow. And how do you do that? Talk therapy didn't work for me. Grief counseling did not work for me. I was too deep into my analytical mind. And I'll mention this briefly because this is also really important if you choose to go down the microdosing path. We still use all three brains when it comes to microdosing. We use them every day without even thinking, no pun intended. Our gut brain is where 80% of our serotonin and happy hormones and neurotransmitters are produced. So if you have a bad gut microbiome, it actually hinders your ability to absorb the plant medicine. And it also hinders, your experiences in life. So I just put that out there because of my 17 years in health and fitness and my own mental health, suicidal thoughts journey. Plant medicine by themselves didn't do it all. I had to clean up my gut brain and do some additional, nutritional things and stuff along the way, which I'll talk a little bit about. That impacts your head brain. So it also does then help slow down the ego and all of that kind of stuff as well. And of course, your heart brain, being into your heart, you hear the phrase over and over again, follow your heart. Most of us, myself definitely included in that, I had so much grief and so much blockage of my heart that I couldn't feel. I literally could not feel my emotions, even when I, pulled back on drinking. It was the plant medicines that helped shut down my head brain, did some, obviously work in my gut brain so that my heart brain could wake up. If you've ever heard of the Heart Math Institute, there's a lot of people talking about that. This spiritual awakening is about helping also awaken you and get you more into your heart, less in the ego and the head brain. So we want to talk about now, this is the brand new content. I've had some new content already, but I just want to share what's possible. There's so many possibilities and everybody's different. No one, I've had so many clients, no two clients have the exact same protocol when it comes to microdosing. No two clients have the exact same results because you are all unique sovereign beings. A lot of things depend on your nutrition. A lot of things depend on how much time and space you give yourself when you're doing this work. That was pivotal for me. Without giving myself a lot of time and space and adding a few hours into my day, my week to process what was coming up for me, I might be actually in a psych ward because I did plant medicine, but I didn't integrate it fully, and especially in that first year. And then I started realizing, oh, okay, I've got to work with these sacred plants. I got to develop a relationship and I got to give them time, just like I give my kids, my husband, myself now. When I first started this, I didn't do that because I was a busy workaholic, but now I've created so much space and self-care. I just want to put that out there. You got to be ready to put your oxygen mask on first, and you've got to integrate it. And you got to look at it from a mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. So this is especially where you're going to want to probably take notes. I'm going to go kind of fast, but again, we have Q&A at the end. So don't hesitate to jump in when I open it up for questions. Part of that mental, physical, spiritual, emotional alignment is the purging. I'm only mentioning this briefly because on microdosing, purging is minimal. But since some of you are also curious, as of course I started with one microdosing session, but then I went fully deep dive because I recognized I had way too much grief, way too much unprocessed trauma, and I was struggling with addiction. So I needed to go deeper into the body. So that physical part, our body holds literally physical toxins, gut brain, gut microbiome being out of balance because of sugar addiction, because of busyness, antibiotics, birth control pills, all of those kinds of things is one way the body keeps the score, but the other way is actual traumas. If you've ever seen the documentary, and I'll mention it on one of the slides, The Wisdom of Trauma, it actually stays in your organs. It actually is a part of your lymph system. Most dis-ease comes from stress and trauma that the body has never been able to get rid of. So just working with the mind isn't going to help. You got to purge. So whether it's through ayahuasca, psilocybin, deep dives, the combo frog medicine that you've heard me talking about now because I'm a practitioner, crying, which yes, microdosing can help you with gentler purges, not like the throwing up. It can help your digestive health, not everybody, but some. So you might notice a change in your stools when you're microdosing. So that helps. I know a lot, myself and my clients, they cried while microdosing. So not holding back the tears is a purge. Somatic shaking and release, yes, that can happen on microdosing. Definitely happens on the deep dive work. And there's also going to be a trauma release as well. And that oftentimes can come in a variety of ways. It can even come through exercise if the microdosing is bringing up, as an example, the emotion of anger. And hopefully, instead of taking it out on someone, you go for a run and you purge it that way. So that is what's possible with microdosing, but especially with the deep dive work. The other part, the spiritual, I wanted to just bring this up. Entheogens have been around for actually billions of years, depending on what you believe. I don't want to offend anyone's belief system, but you could say millions, billions, or if you just want to say thousands, it's all perfect. Whatever you believe is perfect. And they used it for shamanic purposes, meaning they wanted to connect with the divine. Entheogen is the God within. Jesus himself said the kingdom of heaven lies within. And if you read the book, Psychedelic Gospels, it might mean different than what you grew up with in church. I'm just going to throw that out there. But I will tell you, I hear that now and I get so excited. That's why I meditate every morning. And I've created my own meditation, right? I used to do a more scientific meditation that was taught to me. Now I've created my own, and I'm doing my own meditation that's connecting with my ancestors, my guides, my animal totems, all of that. So it's been way more helpful and healing and beneficial because it's my own. And I feel like that's what plant medicine gave back to me, something that I had lost. And it also helped for me personally. I had a deep religion wound, not against religion at all, but my point is, for me, there was too still many left brain, analytical mind rules. There was also guilt, shame, fear. I share that because most of my clients have exhibited that as well. So it's real. It's a thing. We do a lot of trauma release around even working with ex-cult survivors as well. And so putting that aside, that's why I just want to differentiate. Here we're talking about going within your heart, going within the heart, which is the seat of your soul, home of your truth. If you believe in past lives or reincarnation, it's also going to connect you with that. I've had experiences myself with simply microdosing, reconnecting to past lives, reconnecting to how I died and just different things like that. Again, that was very, very much further along in my journey. And it's something I can help my clients with. It's not an automatic per se, but I have heard some people do that as well. And when you know, like my autoimmune disease, when I know I was killed past lives, with, being choked, being hung, being burned at the stake, which caused my claustrophobia in this lifetime, interestingly enough. If you can go in and understand, and again, name what happened to you, feel it fully, then you can heal, right? Then anything is possible. Then your light can shine so much better because you're not holding on to the trauma, the baggage, the physical, mental, and it's really more profound. I'm not against anybody going to psychics or mediums. Like my husband does readings for people. But what if you could figure this out on your own, right? And heal your own dis-ease. We are our own innate healers when we're given the chance and given the tools, and you have all the tools inside of you. You just got to learn to bring them forth And that's what we love to talk about. The more shadow work you do with the plant medicine, the more light you can have, and then you can develop your gifts faster and you can heal your life. Louise Hay, right? Another great book. And I'm just throwing this out there because especially if you are, coming from addiction background like I was, or if you're coming from a mental health background like my mom was a schizophrenic, this is a great movie. And he endorses plant medicines inside this movie as well. So the plants taught me so much wisdom and love and compassion for my perpetrators, for the people who hurt me, and also helped me with a lot of forgiveness along the way. So that was huge. So my question to you is, what seeds are you wanting to plant with plant medicine? And again, I don't call them psychedelics. I prefer sacred plants or plant medicine or entheogens, truly. But what are you going to unearth, and are you ready? That's the biggest question, because most people are used to the therapeutic model, or maybe talking to a friend or things of that nature. All great things, right? But when you're going into the plants realm, they're going to ask you to be challenged. They're going to command whether you are ready or not to do some shadow work. So you got to be willing to go dig deep into the ground of your mind and your heart. And I love this quote: every flower must grow through dirt. We actually call our sanctuary here in Southern California the lotus throne. The lotus flower is the perfect example of death, rebirth, and renewal. And it grows out of some really gross, ugly, muddy water stuff, gunk, honestly, but it comes out and blooms the most beautiful, sacred flower. Because if you don't do this work, and I think a lot of people are being required to do it now as we're ascending as a planet, your past will be your future. It's that definition of insanity, right? Repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So until you have the courage to create a new future and embracing your past and loving it, accepting it, that's where you can't change. You can't have those breakthroughs like I've had and my clients have had. So briefly, and then I want to dive into the mental, physical, emotional, spiritual possibilities for you. And then again, take notes and if there's anything that really stands out to you, that may be what you're looking to consider healing right now. So what I got to heal with proper integration of support and guidance along the way. The plants by themselves aren't going to do this. My mother-father wound, that feminine and masculine that I talked about earlier. I had very intense relationships with my parents while they were living. And then when they died, it was very, very hard. So it caused a lot of grief, a lot of blockages in my heart. My dad and my grandmother died of congestive heart failure. So I didn't want that to run in my family anymore. So I broke that cycle, right? I broke the cycle of the fear that I had of becoming a schizophrenic like my mother. I did a lot of healing around the mother wounds, right? And embracing my own role as a mother. Ancestral trauma, getting to the roots of my ancestors, guilt, fear, shame, digestive issues. Once I started also changing and, eliminating the alcohol, all of that helped my autoimmune disease. Addictive behaviors, I created healthier relationships with those behaviors. Because again, it's not about the substance or the things, it's the behavior, it's the action. We can get addicted to habits. They can be unhealthy and they can be healthy. But be able to understand that and be more awake and awoke and mindful of that was huge for me. Not just saying no to alcohol or sugar, but actually understanding where the choices were coming from deep inside was huge. Became conscious of my trauma responses. I had grief and loss of so many loved ones. I reframed my relationship also with grief and death completely, radically. Still working on the guilt, shame, and the fear. I'm very much still human, very much still on the path. But that's been so beautiful to be able to name and to feel them and to understand them when they come up, and they still come up daily. Shed nearly 40 pounds and have kept it off. Again, most of that was the emotional, even though it manifested finally in the physical. It also had a positive impact, of course, on my relationships with my kids, my marriage. I honestly don't know that I would have been married 2 years ago. It was still very doubtful. And here we are in a thriving, healthy, interdependent, sacred union honoring each other instead of like leaning on each other, being codependent, needy, things of that nature. And then, of course, I changed my name, huge shift in my career, and I'll share more of some of my client testimonials as well. So let's talk about what's possible for your mental health. And I just highlighted some things, okay? This is, and there's studies and research, and I'm to be honest with you, I was more about the experiential. I'm not into all of the books and the research and the quoting of scientific stuff. You can go and check that out. But I had a reset of my default mode network. That is, a system in our brain that's filled with all sorts, like a network in our brain. That is really what I call our autopilot or a knee-jerk reaction. It's our default. It's also what I believe is causing, most addictive behaviors, most inability to stop the chatter in the mind. You just get into these ruts. Literally, they're like ruts in your brain, pathways that just keep repeating over and over and over and over again. So I was able to reset that. They say at any point in time, you only use 10% of your brain consciously. And then, of course, we know about the unconscious and the shadow work that's driving us. But to be able to become more conscious and aware is what the medicine has done. It slowed down that busy monkey mind. I would do a meditation that would actually help me kind of focus. But for me, that wasn't real deep meditation for me. For what I wanted to be able to do is actually create more space and tap deeper into my heart and deeper into the spiritual stuff, which we'll cover later. And that's what the plants did better than anything else I've ever tried myself. Becoming more mindful of that inner critic. I think we all have that. You could call it the ego, but that inner critic, the judge that sits on your shoulder, you could call it the devil if you want, that is spewing out those negative thoughts about yourself. And then, of course, what you say to yourself, you probably say to someone else or to your family or to your friends, or you just, further that spiral or cycle of not believing in yourself. Those limiting beliefs get deeper. And what you think you create, right? So I became definitely more of a third party witness and observer. And instead of even just observing, then I could know how to transmute it. And the medicine and the shadow work and all of the things helped me be able to transmute the shadow into light instead of just saying a bunch of affirmations over it. But this is too much. It's okay. I'm hoping that I'm making sense. But having that calmer mind allowed me to be more focused, more present. I was actually addicted to meditation for a long time because I felt like that was the only way I could quiet my mind. Guess what? I don't need to do that as much. Even though it took me a year to really fine tune my own meditation and working with my divine guides and all of that, it was worth it. Because now I can feel much more calm, much more connected to my intuition, and messages throughout the day just flow, creativity flows, all of that. And then, of course, I was able to focus more on the positive. Once I allowed the inner critic to be heard and seen and name the stuff that was coming up, just as like a toddler, just wants to be heard and seen and appreciated. So once I was able to do that more readily, more consciously, then it dissolved, it dissipated. Then I was able to focus more on the positive. And then, of course, when you're able to focus more on what you want to create as opposed to what you don't want to have happen, right? There was way less anxiety and fear of the future thoughts. Although, true story, I have seen myself and clients, it took them a few months of microdosing. It took me actually a whole year because there was too much to go into right now, but every day I would wake up with having bad dreams and waking up with fear. And if I hadn't had my microdosing and my morning practice, I don't know where I'd be right now. Full disclosure. So I work with clients on really deepening into that fear, that anxiety, that guilt, that shame, whatever it is, and how can they transmute it with the medicine, with the meditation, preferably a morning practice, but you could do it a different time of day, so that you can allow it to flow through you and not stay stuck and attached into your body. Hoping that that makes sense. For sake of time, I'm going to keep going. You can always ask questions in a little bit. As a result of my brain just firing and my ego firing and my monkey mind, I could feel my emotions more. I could be with them. Again, beingness versus doingness, right? I would do in order not to feel or be with the emotions. So again, I had to create that space every day, a little more space, not back to back to back to back, go, 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 do, in order to be with my emotions. I gave myself permission to name them. I mentioned that a little bit already, allowing myself to feel them. So my shadows and unconscious mind could actually be seen, be heard. I cried a lot. Microdosing definitely helped me with that emotional connection to my heart and open my heart more, and not to mention my chakras and all of that. Felt more open, receptive to my masculine and feminine wounds. I showed that slide actually already, so I'm going to briefly touch on the next slide, but that goes back to what I did talk about earlier. Those wounds, they're just crying for attention. Once they get felt and understood and processed, however you're going to process it, whether it's physical, mental, could be spiritual, and then of course with the medicine as your support, then anything's possible. You're going to be much more healthy feminine, much more healthy masculine. Trauma response emotions were also witnessed in real time, and I'll explain what those are. Those are the emotions that we do unconsciously, but once you get that mental health in check with the help of the medicine and the microdosing, then you can, as a witness, also acknowledge those trauma responses. That's where I had a lot of guilt, shame, and fear come up, actually, because I recognized the things that I was doing that was hurting myself and others. And that, honestly, it was a little horrifying. That's why you can't do this alone. You got to have someone to hold space for you virtually or possibly in person. It's definitely not for the faint of heart. And that's why I said this is brave and courageous work. It's not your everyday talk therapy. So finding that balance, being open and receptive on the feminine side, being much more, I don't like the word passive, actually. I just like it being open and receptive, being able to be intuitive, being able to go inward more. The masculine, being able to project and be active, be able to give, be more expansive, be more outward and action oriented, more confident. All of those. I'm not going to go through all of those. Like I said, if you stay till the end, I have a gift for you, which I'll just tell you right now. It's the slides. So if you like the slides and you want them, I'll tell you at the end how to get those. Okay. The trauma responses, these are really, really profound. I do believe that everybody has, in one way, shape, or form, these happen for them every day. I was having all of these happen for me almost. The fight was probably the least one, but that was partially because I was drinking and working so much. I didn't have time to have angry outbursts. Honestly, I didn't. I just shut down. But everyone, once I pulled away the drinking, I had my first sacred rage experience where I thought I was going to kill someone. I've helped clients through those. They're important. They're healthy, especially for women, but also obviously for men. But a lot of women, they don't think anger is good. And I'm here to tell you, all of these are valuable. You just got to be able to be conscious of them. And nothing does that better than working with a guide in plant medicine to be able to awaken to that and then hold yourself with grace and compassion. That's another reason why the daily meditation practice with the medicine, as well as the spiritual practice that I'll talk about in a little bit. So if any of these resonate with you, I can help you. The medicine can help you. And again, you don't want to do this by yourself. Physical health. Once I allowed the emotional baggage to be seen, be heard, be felt, I lost weight. I shed it. I shed 40 pounds. I mentioned that earlier. I've seen clients completely stop emotional eating in just a few months time too, actually. There's no quick fix with plant medicine. Sorry to tell you that, as we are in our New Year's resolutions mode, maybe still. It's going to take some time. 3 to 6 months would be my recommendation, if this is the right path for you. But that was the best part. I lost most of those 40 pounds in 1 year. I microdosed for 18 months. And when I stopped I didn't gain any of the weight back because I made a lot of changes mentally and emotionally and physically. I wanted to exercise more. I felt so much better that I would sleep better. Of course, I wasn't drinking hardly much. I still drink, by the way. I'm not a just say no person, but I was able to change that relationship. So now it's not to escape. So when I don't do that, I also sleep better, even when I do drink, because it's for different reasons. Sugar cravings massively decreased, more in tune with my body. So I could say no more. When I talk about no, like physical boundaries, like saying no to doing too much, or just saying no to just in general people, places, things, and listening and honoring my body and my temple and having those healthy boundaries. Of course, being able to have improved sleep, not being hungover every morning, I could get back to my early to bed, early to rise routines. And ultimately, whether you work with ayahuasca or psilocybin, they can both help with deeper, better sleep. In fact, sometimes one of the side effects in the first week, more so with ayahuasca than psilocybin, people will feel a lot more fatigue, a lot more tired because there's a natural detox effect, which falls into the physical. Spiritual health. Remember earlier, and most of my clients can attest to this for themselves. I was spiritually shut down. For me, even the meditation I was doing wasn't truly spiritual. It was more mental. I wasn't connecting to my higher self in any previous meditations I'd ever done in my whole life. By being able to work with the sacred plants, being able to go into my higher self, which is also the superconscious that we talked about earlier, the more I transmuted the shadow, the more light I could bring into my body, the more connected I could be to divine guidance. And again, this kind of language may not appeal to you, and that's okay. But truly, for those of you who are spiritually stuck, or you want to develop your gifts as a light worker or healer, or just in general, maybe you have your psychic gifts coming online, which is happening now faster than ever because of the age of Aquarius. Maybe you feel separate or alone, like I did, because I didn't really have a religion. So now I'm connected to my ancestors, spiritual guides, and spirit realm like 24/7. So I don't feel separate. Through this process, I had a lot of grief recovery, connections to past loved ones in the other realms. Deeper connection with myself means deeper connection with loved ones in my life. That goes back to improved marriage, improved mom, but also having community, friends. I'm much more connected to people than I have been probably, honestly, my whole life. Having 5,000 Facebook friends is not connections. Okay. Really deeply connecting heart to heart with people has begun happening, and it's so much more richness and deliciousness. So if you're wanting to develop more meaningful relationships and coming more from the heart than the head, the plant medicine path could be for you. And of course, trusting my intuition so much more, trusting myself more, my higher self, my divine intuition, my own purpose in life. I don't have that on the slide, but I reconnected to my purpose. I healed a lot of past life trauma, a lot of ancestral trauma, a lot of karma in this lifetime, understanding all that over the past 2.5 years. Keep in mind, I've been doing it for a while. But now that I know what I can do to help people inside of a container, my clients are getting much faster results than I ever have. I do want to mention Age of Aquarius. If you were in my WhatsApp group, I just posted a video about this, very profound and very spot on. I've been living this the past 2 years, the ups and downs, the psychic gifts coming online, becoming extra powerful. Having more light come in can be very traumatic if you haven't done the shadow work. So I just want to mention that. I had that happen for me, and I see it happen more and more for people. There's also the whole concept of the Great Resignation. People are wanting to make money in a more meaningful way, not just make money for the sake of making money. That's, again, the divine feminine rising. The Age of Aquarius energy is a feminine energy. And of course, people are breaking up. There's a lot of divorce. The divorce rate, as someone said, the past 2 divorce rate, 2 years, super exceeded like the previous 10. I gotta find that in writing, because I was just like, whoa. It's because people are going inward and figuring out, who am I? Why am I here? And why am I with this person? And in a lot of cases, breaking up is probably the best thing you can do, because to do that shadow work as a couple is intense. That's why my husband and we're still together and we want to work with couples, because as you go through this path, you're going to become a different person. You just are. And so knowing that you have value and owning that value, it requires inner work. So just some really quick testimonials, then I'll open up for questions. If there are any questions, you can start putting them. For those of you who are here on the live, I'll also check the Facebook group. Please put questions in the Q&A feature. This is a person who, not everybody wants to have their names shared. You can also go to my Google account, the Lotus Throne Sanctuary. I've got almost 20 testimonials there of a variety of kinds, but this person had cut back on alcohol. They're actually addicted to alcohol and porn, honestly, numbing in many different ways, internet. And so they actually had a lot of shame that they were working through, but they also had a sense of smell that improved. They had a very, very poor sense of smell for about 20 years due to a lot of sinus infections. So there was physical improvement, and I do believe that the psilocybin helped bring down the inflammation and improved his gut microbiome. So it's really crazy what's possible here. Someone had improved sleep. They did my online meditations and breathwork classes, and did the meditation and the microdosing before bed. And they're so much more excited and energized every day. My friend Josh, he's sleeping better, dreaming more, drinking less alcohol, and significantly decreased his daily soda habit. He used to drink 2 to 3 Diet Pepsis a day, and now he's only 3 cans of soda in the last month, inside of my 30-day Jumpstart one-on-one program. Another, she's actually a doctor. She and her husband came, I know you probably can't read this, so I'll summarize. She came to our ceremony in Minnesota, and they'd already done plant medicine before as a couple, but now she was just giving us kudos because she and her husband had not only had a breakthrough, she was really blown away by the prep work and the post integration. So if you're going to do a deep dive ceremony, no matter who it's with, does not have to be with us, please make sure they do pre-coaching and post-coaching. Because if you don't integrate what the plants show you, you can actually downward spiral. You can have issues, and you can kind of get stuck in some trauma loops. So just make sure that you have that kind of guidance and support. And so through that, she had some big shifts also as a business owner. And I do know her. She was like me, very, very driven, very money driven, focused and all that. And now she's much more in the flow, which is super exciting. So a couple more tips, because I don't see any questions in the Q&A feature. Just remember, when you're going through this journey, make sure you have journal prompts. This is what I provide my clients every week: mental, emotional, physical, spiritual support along the way. What are you letting go of? What are you then, as a result, calling into your life? You know, a lot of times people, I just want to get rid of the bad stuff. But if you're working on the shadow, you're ultimately going to bring more light in. And how are you integrating that? So how can you stay the course? Like a lot of my clients, they need me to walk beside them, because I've had people who didn't have a coach and they would quit. They would spend a bunch of money on microdosing capsules or mushrooms or whatever, and they wouldn't even know where to begin and what they're doing. So there is an art and a science to it. So make sure you journal every step of the way as well. A couple things to think about, especially if you're doing this on your own, because it can be scary. And this is why a lot of my friends quit, and why I actually started coming out and coaching on it, because there can be detox effects: loose stools, brain fog, fatigue, I mentioned earlier, cramping, can bring up the trauma. So if there's a trauma that comes up that scares you, I had that happen because I was trying to microdose on my own way back in the beginning, and I had to stop. The anxiety was too much. Anxiety, sadness can come up. Development of your spiritual gifts can come up. I've had a really scary experience with that. I'm not even going to go into that. You can also have possible nightmares or more dreams, and that can be scary for some. Potential major life changes. So you got to be ready. Like, are you going to change your career? Are you going to change your relationship? Are you going to truly own your greatness and come back to your true nature and purpose? So you just got to be ready for that. Like I said earlier, what seeds are you planting? And are you really ready to open those doors, right? Are you really ready for what you're going to face? I actually have talked people out of microdosing, simply because I know that you've got to be committed. It's even a bigger commitment than joining the gym on New Year's. It's inner work. It's inner fitness. Make sure you talk to a professional like myself or whoever. Not all medications are okay. In fact, there can be people rejected just for that alone. So talk to me privately if you want to book a consultation, and definitely consult a physician before you take this path. I'm going to skip that conversation today. I did want to just mention I have access to trusted sources. I only sell the product or give my sources and give access to that for people who hire and work with me in a coaching capacity, for obvious reasons, liability and protecting the sources. So psilocybin and ayahuasca drops are what I coach people with inside my 30-day jumpstart, as well as a 8-week program for women. I'm excited to just mention it here briefly today. I don't have all of the marketing ready for it yet. But in March, end of February, beginning of March, March is Women's Month. And so really wanting to focus on helping serve women in their transformation and their growth. So that'll be exciting. And if you are already microdosing, you have experienced microdosing, I do also have access to psilocybin, which is psilocybin and ayahuasca combined. But that's only for people who are wanting to work in an advanced capacity. All right. So is there any questions? Anybody have any questions before we wrap it up? I'm almost done. I'm gonna check if there's any more messages. Okay, I don't see anything on the Facebook Live. And no questions. I know you've been here before. Hopefully, if you've watched this before, I'm hoping that the content has been helpful. Maybe if you don't have any questions before I wrap it up here, type in the chat one new thing you learned today. Type in the chat one new thing you learned today. I'm going to go back to my slides. I just have one more slide. Okay. So no questions. Here is my offer to you, and then I'll share with you how you can get the slides. If you are serious about 2024 having your best year ever, and you are open, you have to feel the call. You've got to be ready to do some deep work. And I would also say, even though my initial core offer is my 30-day jumpstart, which is one-on-one coaching, includes a medicine, includes my online 24/7 portal with breathwork, yoga, meditation, inner child healing, nutrition classes, live classes, as well as the 24/7 portal is what you have access to. If you're serious and you want to shift your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual practice, or your spiritual health, I would love to be your guide. Like I said, I microdosed 18 months straight. If I would have had a guide like me, I probably could have gotten a lot more done in 6 months, maybe 12 months. I also had a massive spiritual awakening. So there's a lot of other layers to that. But if you're feeling the call and you're ready, the 30-day jumpstart is my most economical entry into this landscape safely, because it's also very dangerous. There's a lot of not so great sources out there. I've seen people get really, really sick with some sources for microdosing. And then the other thing is you buy the stuff and you don't know what to do with it. You can make yourself sick, or you can have those detoxes, or you can just not feel anything, because it's not a one size fits all either. If you really want to transform and get lasting results, you'd want to consider it for 3 months, maybe up to 6. So let me know, shoot me an email, reach out to me. And then also, if you have any interest as well, in my women's program, just shoot me an email, at support@microdosingforhealth.com, microdosingforhealth.com. And I've already alluded to that, microdosing for health, mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual. I want to take a multifaceted, holistic approach. So if you have goals in those arenas and want more info, just shoot me an email. And if you want the slides, this only applies to those of you here on the live. It right now is 2:02 Pacific time. So send me an email, support@microdosingforhealth.com, and ask for the slides by 2:15 p.m. So that's 4:15 Central, 5:15 Eastern. You have to have it to me and say, hey, Magdalena, I want the slides. Thank you. And that's it. And I'll email you the slides from today's presentation. And if you're on my email list also, if you want to hear about the women's program, feel free to sign up and be on my email list. And then last but not least, if you have any interest whatsoever in deep dive ceremonies, we have one coming up in Phoenix, Arizona in March, one in California, San Diego County area in April, Minnesota in May, and then one more in San Diego in June. I also know that there's been a lot of predictions by astrologers and a lot of people who are studying this ascension that especially starting in June, things are going to be even more intense. So I'm really, really encouraging, don't wait. If you're ready to dive in and take the leap of faith and start developing a relationship with these sacred plants and having me as a guide, or whoever as a guide, this is a great time to develop that meditation practice that is your own, develop that spiritual practice that is your own, heal a lot of those lower vibrational energies. I didn't have time to get into the chakras today, but I work with those with my clients as well, because I find that there's a lot of emotions and mental things that have caused us to block those chakras. And especially if you're in that late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s range, as those higher level chakras are opening up, more psychic gifts are coming in, then it can also be kind of overwhelming, traumatic, and scary too. So, all right, guys, thank you so much for showing up. Whether you're watching this live or on the replay, I'd love for you to leave a comment and let me know what was the best thing that you learned today. Okay, until next time, guys, here's to your best health, your best wealth, your best wisdom. And oh, by the way, if you are catching this on the live or before the 25th, we're closing the doors this Thursday, full moon, January 25th, to our shadow work 8-week program me and my husband are doing to help people go really deep, which includes plant medicine, microdosing, and a lot of invaluable coaching. So reach out to me before then if you're interested in that. And I'm done. I'm complete. I bid you an amazing 2024, amazing journey, and appreciate your time today. Bye-bye for now.